Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves wandering through glowing embers atop vast Nordic woodlands, watching as gentle orange flames flicker against an ancient northern sky. You're out there with the Viking farmers, wielding a rather unexpected tool that controlled fire, not quite the marshmallow roasting campfire you're picturing. It's a quiet, burning secret that shaped their survival far more than sword or longship. You probably won't survive a day trying to live like them, what with the endless dark winters, bug-filled summers, and the never-ending adventure of felling trees with stone axes. But you'll get to drift off imagining how these fires weren't just about keeping warm or cooking. The Vikings used fire like farmers today use tractors, but with more sparks and patience. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're already cozy, feel free to snuggle in deeper. I invite you to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're tuning in from and what time of day it is for you. It's always warming to know how vast our community of nocturnal historians reach 7 if you're listening from sunsets in Spain or sunrise in Singapore. Now, let's step gently away from the crackling campsite to picture the Nordic land just before fire came into play. Imagine a realm blanketed with dense forests, so quiet you could hear your own breath hanging in the cool air. Towering pines, ancient oaks, and quiet birch groves crowd together, their roots tangled over mossy ground. It's an endless green maze, whispering with the rustle of small creatures and the snap of fallen branches. Beautiful. Yes, but a lot to clear for planting grain or grazing livestock. Without modern bulldozers or chainsaws, clearing this tangled wilderness is a monumental challenge. You might have a sharp axe, but slashing your way through forest after forest takes forever, and the leftover debris only invites more thorns and weeds to reclaim the space. Vikings, however, discovered a surprisingly effective alternative: to burn it down. It's true, these early Scandinavian farmers wielded a tool of transformation as old as time: fire. But not as a destructive force, more like a careful sculptor's brush, applied with patience and knowledge. They knew how to control it, clear the stubborn forest growth, and leave behind fertile ash that fed crops for seasons to come. Quite the farmer's paradox destroying to create. Historians still argue whether this practice was something the Vikings learned from their neighbours or developed independently. But what's clear is how central fire became to their agrarian success and social life. So, as you snuggle in tonight, picture the smoky haze drifting through ancient trees and the quiet crackle of embers working their magic beneath the Nordic sun. And with that, we soft step forward, deeper into the Viking land before the fire. You trudge through a realm of towering trees and thick underbrush, their dark green canopies swallowing all but slivers of grey sky. This is the Viking land before the fire, a vast, dense forest stretching far beyond the horizon in every direction. Imagine the cold crunch of frosted pine needles underfoot and the distant calls of unseen birds. The air is heavy with the rich, earthy scent of moss and damp bark. A sensory overload for your senses as you attempt to find open ground for planting. This Nordic wilderness is no gentle countryside. It's an unyielding tangle of towering pines, rugged oaks, slender birches, and thick hemlock saul demanding endless labour to clear. The soil beneath you is patchy, thick with fallen leaves and rotted wood, often swampy in low-lying areas. No easy ground for seeds or grazing herds. This is what the early Viking farmers faced when settling these northern climes. Land that seemed eager to swallow any human endeavour whole. You wield a heavy axe, its weight awkward in your grasp, as you attempt to fell a stubborn tree. The sharp edge bites into bark and wood, but the effort replaces sweat with frustration. Forest debris piles higher as you cut, dense thickets quickly reclaiming any fragile clearing you manage to carve. You curse the thorny bushes that seem to grow faster than they die, and the persistent moss that sprawls in every direction. Trying to farm here is like wrestling with an uncooperative giant who refuses to yield. The dense canopy keeps sunlight scarce, making it tough for crops to take root even where you find small patches of soil. Plus, these forests are home to various animals from curious deer to hungry boars that nibble on seedlings or trample young crops. Even your livestock struggles to find enough fresh grass and water. Amidst this struggle, archaeologists have found clues that Viking farmers pushed deeper into these forbidding woods than once thought, carving small clearings scattered across rugged terrain. Historians still argue whether these clearings were permanent settlements or seasonal camps adapting to the harsh northern environment. The picture emerging is one of adaptive resilience, a people learning through trial, error, and yes, a lot of tireless chopping. But chopping isn't the whole story, as wielding an axe alone did not match the efficiency of a controlled fire. The fire offered a faster, smarter solution, not just to clear but to enrich a land, understandably reluctant to yield its bounty. You might say fire became the Viking farmer's quiet partner in a world where muscle and sweat simply ran out before the landscape did. So, picture these dark forests humming with life and shadow, just before fire's arrival made a profound transformation. That quiet tension between man, tree and earth sets the stage for our next step, learning exactly how slash and burn farming became a gentle revolution across these northern lands. You stand at the edge of a thick, untouched forest, the air hazy with the faint scent of pine and earth. Now, imagine the deliberate flick of a torch, the first spark catching dry brush, the fire beginning its slow, ravenous hunger. This is the heart of slash and burn farming, the Viking farmer's fiery friend that steadily reshaped the land and their lives. Instead of hacking away endlessly with mere axes, the farmers used controlled fires to clear the dense undergrowth and smaller trees, effectively turning woodland into sunlit fields. This was no impulsive blaze, but a carefully timed and managed tool. The flames would lap through the underbrush, crunching the brittle twigs and leaves, leaving behind a charred but fertile canvas when the ashes settled. As the fire consumed the dead and dying vegetation, it cleared space quickly and with less physical drain than hacking trees, one by onion, important consideration when wielding a stone or iron axe before industrial aid. The scorched remnants left behind a dusting of nutrient-rich ash, rich in minerals like potassium and phosphorus, crucial plant food components that would boost the growth of the next season's crops. This practice, known in modern terms as swidden agriculture, was common not only among Viking farmers, but also across many early societies globally. Yet, Viking farmers had their unique twists, applying fires with measured care to avoid raging forest conflagrations that could quickly spiral beyond control in their dense woods. Historians still argue whether the Vikings' fire-setting techniques were influenced by practices learned from continental farmers or developed entirely on their own through trial and error. One quirky detail often overlooked is that the Vikings sometimes timed their burns to coincide with certain festivals or seasons, turning the fire from mere agriculture into community events with ritual warmth. Fires crackled under smoky skies, connecting neighbours closely as they waited for the earth to cool and fertile soil to reveal itself. But fire was a double-edged sword. While it cleared land quickly, it also carried risk ashes blown by wind could ignite unintended patches, and repeated burning could deplete soil nutrients if done carelessly. Viking farmers knew this. They cycled fields, moving their burn zones to allow previously cleared land a rest period, practicing an early form of crop rotation. Imagine after the fire cooled, your Viking farmer kneeling in the warm black ash, pressing grain seeds into the freshly cleared earth. The smell of smoke still hangs faintly, but your crops now have a fresh start, fed by the fire's gift. This gentle partnership with flames turned the wilderness into manageable farms, a remarkable adaptation to a harsh northern environment where daylight hours waxed and waned dramatically. So, as the smoke rises and settles each year, you feel the pulse of a farming culture using flame not only to survive, but to thrive soothing firelight, guiding the quiet rhythms of rural Viking life. You find yourself kneeling on the scorched earth, the faint scent of burnt wood mingling with moist soil pressed between your fingers. This ash-streaked ground holds a quiet secret: fire's magic in turning stubborn earth into fertile farmland. Fire isn't just a destructive force here. Instead, it's a thoughtful gardener, gently coaxing nourishment from beneath the burnt surface. It's a kind of natural fertilizer that Viking farmers relied on to feed their crops from one season to the next. When fire sweeps through forest undergrowth, it releases locked-up nutrients from the decaying plant, matter nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium back into the soil in the form of ash. Picture a fine white dust resting lightly on the blackened soil, sparkling faintly in the sun. This mineral dust serves as a natural booster, improving soil chemistry in a way no axe or hoe could easily match. The crops that follow feed on this surprising gift from the flames, growing taller and more robust than in untended woodland soil. Yet fire's role in soil fertility isn't straightforward. While a single burn can rejuvenate a patch of land, repeated burnings risk stripping away vital nutrients. You can almost hear the soil sigh in exhaustion if overworked, losing its spongy depth and moisture-holding capacity. The Vikings understood this balance intuitively, at least they had to. Their farming rhythm included long fallow periods, allowing the forest to slowly reclaim land in cycles that spanned decades. Historians still argue whether Viking farmers intentionally planned these fallow periods, or whether necessity and tradition made the cycle happen naturally. It's a subtle debate. Controlled ecological mindfulness or trial and error farm management under unpredictable northern skies. You might find it interesting that some archaeological soil samples hint at ash layers that show remarkably precise burn intervals, suggesting the Vikings kept a kind of rough timetable for land use. It's almost like you can hear them whispering advice across 1,000 years. Don't burn too often, friend. A farming cautionary tale delivered without a word spoken. From a sensory perspective, the contrast between freshly burned fields and deep forest is striking. After a fire, there's that clean, mineral-rich, smell-sharp, earthy, and rich with promise quite, different from the damp, heavy scent of crowded woods. The ground feels warmer underfoot. The early sun penetrates easily, bathing the space in a reassuring glow. But of course, the fire isn't the whole story of soil. Moisture, temperature, and crop choice also play their roles. After all, even the finest ash won't grow crops without water and a little luck. Still, fire's gift remains a quiet, unsung hero of Viking agricultura. Little spark that helped tame wild lands into fruitful farms. As you rise from the ash-strewn earth, you carry with you an ancient Viking lesson in balance. Fire can both feed and fatigue the soil, a reminder that even nature's harshest tool demands respect and care. You step carefully through a quiet village, wooden homes nestled beneath misty northern skies. These aren't just any houses, they are the product of fire as much as wood, shaped and preserved by skillful use of flames. For Viking farmers, fire was far more than a weapon against wilderness. It was a versatile partner, essential in shaping their wooden world. Imagine standing beside a rough-hewn log house, the timber walls still warm to the touch from recent charring. Viking builders often used fire deliberately to treat wood, gently burning its surface to protect against pests, rot, and moisture. This technique, reminiscent of today's shosugi ban method from Japan, darkened the timber, creating a toughened outer layer that resisted decay and extended the lifetime of a home. Beyond preservation, controlled fires helped shape the wood itself. When crafting tools, ship parts, or furniture, Viking craftsmen would use fire to soften wood fibres, making them pliable for bending and carving. You can almost hear the soft crackle of glowing embers as planks are carefully heated over low flames, coaxed into shape by steady hands. This burning technique wasn't without its subtle risks too. Much heat, and the wood chars beyond usefulness. Too little, and the desired flexibility is lost. Historians still argue whether this firing was a widespread artisanal skill or a more localised craft practised by specialised woodworkers. Either way, it was a gentle balance of flame, wood, and human touch. One oddly charming detail is how smoke from these woodworking fires sometimes filled the village air for hours, lending a faintly musty aroma to the homes and Tulsa cosy, if smoky, signature of daily Viking life. If you picture a carpenter's workshop bathed in soft orange light, with shadows dancing on rough timber and the occasional puff of fragrant smoke, you're almost there. Fire also played a role in site clearing for construction. After burning forests to open farmland, some of the same fire-tended wood was naturally prepared for building. Charred logs, while weather-resistant, could be trimmed and shaped more easily, linking the agricultural fires with domestic life in an unbroken chain. Walking these wooden streets, warmed from the glow of hearth fires and softened by the mellow scent of treated wood, you sense how fire quietly stitched together Viking daily life. It was a steady, temperate present Senever, flamboyant but always vital. A gentle glow against cold northern nights and dense green forests. So, as you breathe in the smoky, earthy scent of northern timber villages, remember that fire wasn't just a tool, but a living partner shaping the very walls around you, the furniture you touch, and the ships that carried Viking dreams across the seas. You find yourself standing on a mossy hilltop, the shifting wind carrying wisps of smoke curling lazily above a distant village. This isn't just any smoke, it's a language, a subtle, flickering messenger rising through the cool northern air. For the Vikings, fire wasn't only about farming or crafting. It was a way to talk from afar, a silent signal threading through the rugged landscapes they called home. Imagine, as dusk falls and shadows deepen, watchfires lit atop hills or mountain ridges, their smoke pillars stretching skyward like ghostly fingers. These fires sent messages across valleys and fjords, warning of approaching travellers, calling clans to assembly, or announcing important news. It's a natural form of communication, simple yet effective, when words could not cross long distances. Historians still argue about how organised this smoke signalling really was, whether it followed a codified system of patterns, like ancient semaphore, or if it was more improvisational, relying on communities' shared understanding and watchful eyes. However, it's clear that smoke's visual reach made it invaluable on the often misty and rugged Scandinavian terrain. One charming quirk is that smoke's colour and density probably played a role too. Dry brush and green wood produce very different smoke signatures, which might signal urgency or specific messages without a single spoken word. It's like the Vikings were early masters of smoke talk, a gentle cousin to the war horns and messenger birds. Fire signals weren't without risk too. Many fires could confuse, and stray embers might spark accidental blazes. But controlled watchfires were a calming presence by night, their gentle crackle and drifting smoke weaving into the social rhythm of Viking life. Picture neighbours gathering near the firelight, interpreting the signals while sharing warm drink and the occasional dry joke about who forgot to douse the fire properly last time. So, as you watch smoke drift lazily above silent forests and fjords, imagine this ancient network of flickering flames and you, quietly listening for messages carried on the cool night wind, a soothing reminder that even fire could help friends stay connected across wild lands. You slip inside a Viking longhouse, the warm glow of the central hearth flickering softly against heavy wooden beams. The air smells faintly smoky, a comforting musk layered with the aroma of cooking herbs and damp wool. This hearth isn't just a fire, it is the very heart of everyday life. A gentle pulse of warmth and light in the chill of northern nights. Within this longhouse, fire governs the rhythm of the day. It crackles quietly beneath a pot of thick stew, sending wisps of fragrant steam curling upwards. The heat it gives off keeps the biting cold at bay, as family members settle into their evening routines. You can almost hear the low hum of conversation around the flumestries, songs, the occasional chucklies. The flickering light softens worries and weaves connection. Firelight shapes the home schedule. Mornings begin and end with kindling strokes, and the hearth's dying embers mark the gradual slowing of the household into night. The fire's steady warmth invites children closer, their shadows stretching and shrinking lazily on rough walls, while elders spin tales of gods or journeys across stormy seas. It's a dance of light and shadow, sound and silence, a tangible comfort when the world outside is harsh and uncertain. Interestingly, the hearth fire also had a role in community identity and social order. The household's fire was sacred and fiercely protected. Leaving it to die could be seen as neglect, a sign of disorder, or bad fortune. Historians still debate how far this notion extended, whether the hearth fire was chiefly practical or bore deeper ritual importance in Viking society. Nevertheless, you can feel its cultural weight as you breathe in the smoky air. One lesser-known fact is that the hearth fire was typically tended by women, guardians of the flame who kept the home alive and warm. This quiet responsibility was crucial. It ensured that warmth, light, and food could be provided in a world where winters were long and dark. The family's safety often depended on this gentle stewardship. So, as you sink into the gentle glow of the fire's warmth, imagine the soft crackle and comfort of a Viking hearther, steady, reassuring presence that shaped daily life, bonded families, and spun the slow, comforting threads of history, glowing quietly in the dark. You sit beside a low fire, the orange flames licking gently at the base of a spit where a fish slowly turns, releasing a subtle sizzle and a mouth-watering aroma. This isn't a modern barbecue, this is Viking cooking, a culinary rhythm woven into the flickering dance of firelight. Fire here shapes not only warmth, but flavours, textures, and the very survival of these northern people. The Vikings didn't have the luxury of modern ovens or refrigerators, but they were masters of using fire to both cook and preserve food in clever, slow-paced ways. Roasting meat on spits over ember beds was common, allowing for even cooking without rushing the process. Imagine the hiss of fat melting and dripping to the coals below, sending gentle puffs of smoke upward, infusing the air around the food with a subtle, smoky richness. One key Viking technique was smoking fish and meats to preserve them for long journeys or the leaner months. Herring and salmon were hung within smoke-filled huts or specially constructed smokehouses, the slow-burning fires emitting clean, aromatic smoke. This drying and flavouring process could take days, but it resulted in tender, tasty food that would keep well, crucial for long sea voyages or dark winters when fresh meat was scarce. Historians still argue how widespread these smokehouses were within Viking settlements, or whether some of this preservation was done more informally, using individual hearths or temporary outdoor pits. Yet, archaeological finds make it clear that such fire-based preservation was a key survival tactic. A quirky detail. Some researchers suggest Vikings even burned different types of wood like juniper or birch tow influenced the flavour of smoked foods, much as modern chefs experiment with wood chips today. So, their fires were not just practical but sensory experiments, long before any foodies nabbed Instagram likes. In addition to roasting and smoking, fire was used to cook porridge, boil water for broths, and warm water for cleaning. The hearth's fire shaped daily food routines as much as the landscape. As you breathe in the fragrant mix of smoke, roasted meat, and fresh pine, you can almost taste the gentle flavours carried through centuries. A cooking fire softly stoking the Viking day, from dawn to dusk and beyond. You step into the rhythm of a Viking farmstead, where the gentle seasons pulse not just in the changing light, but in the careful timing of fire. Fire wasn't a random tool flung at the landscape. It was part of a seasonal dance, woven into the steady calendar of farming chores and village festivities. Early spring was when many of the yearly fires were lit. After the long, dark winters characteristic of the Scandinavian north, the first controlled burn would clear fields of dry brush left from the previous summer. Imagine billowing smoke unfurling over fields, the land slowly waking as ashes settled onto the soil, warming it ever so slightly beneath fresh shoots. This fire clearing wasn't just practical, it bore meaning as a symbol of renewal and preparedness for planting. As summer unfolded, firework like bonfires sparked village celebrations, sometimes aligned with ancient festivals marking midsummer or harvest time. These fires, often larger and more social than the controlled burns of the fields, serve to strengthen communal bonds and mark cycles of growth and gratitude. Laughter and music blended with smoky tendrils curling into long summer nights. When autumn came, only embers remained in the fields, their warmth gently fading into the earth. Farmers took advantage of the lingering heat to dry grain or cure meats over smaller, more controlled fires. The day's work was slowing as the year prepared to rest, yet fire remained a comforting presence, guarding against chill and darkness. Winter, long and cold, was the season when hearth fires inside. Viking homes burned longest a soft glow against the biting cold. Outside, managed fires for field clearance paused, giving the land and soil a rest during the frozen months. Historians still argue how rigidly Viking communities adhered to this fire calendar, or whether variations depended on local ecology and social customs. Were these burnings carefully mapped out plans, or did they arise organically from observation and tradition? Either way, fire was a steady partner in shaping agricultural life, and not just for clearing ground, but for nurturing it. There's an often overlooked detail in these cycles. Some Viking sagas hint at fire dances, ceremonial acts meant to honour the flames and encourage fertility in the land, hinting at a poetic bond between farmer and firelight beyond mere practicality. So, as you imagine warm, flickering fires welcoming and marking the seasons, feel yourself settle into a slow, natural cyclic rhythm, echoed by the crackling embers softly guiding the Viking farming year. Your eyes trace the flickering shadows cast by a small fire flickering against rough wood walls, and you hear whispers from an age steeped in myth and memory. Fire wasn't merely a farming tool, it was woven into the spiritual fabric of Viking life, a symbol as unpredictable as the northern seas, and as vital as the air itself. Imagine the flickering flames, embodying Jörmungandr's subtle coil, or echoing the wild fire of the giant Surt, whose burning sword was said to herald the end of all things during Ragnarok. Fire occupies a paradoxical place in Norse myth, destructive yet renewing, dangerous yet sacred, much like the farmer's own relationship with their controlled burns. Even in mythology, flames licked at the borders of worlds, connecting human, divine, and natural realms. Among Viking households, the hearth fire held a revered status. Consider the household goddess, or spirit, often associated with the flame's warmth and protectioner, quiet guardian of family and fertility. Some scholars still debate whether these beliefs influenced practical fire use, or if the spiritual meaning arose later, entwined with the undeniable importance of fire in daily life. One intriguing detail is the concept of funeral pyres and sacred groves, where fire played in ritual farewell and renewal, a gentle blending of the physical and the mystical. It's a soft, smouldering thread, weaving lifespan to afterlife, nature to the divine. You might smile at how sagas sometimes describe fire as almost a living character, with a will and mood of its own, sometimes obeying humans, other times wild and untamable. It's easy to see those narratives as early forms of respecting fire's dual power, encouraging caution without fear. And, speaking of respect, fire festivals, midwinter blazes, and bonfires were opportunities for communities to come together, reminding themselves that while fire could threaten, it also gave light, life, and warmth, quietly reassuring in the darkest months. So, As you watch flames dance and imagine the flickering stories told by the ancients, you're wrapped in a gentle embrace of myth and history fire, lighting the path not just of farming, but of belief, hope, and renewal in the Viking world. You breathe in the crisp air, tinged faintly with smoke, and look out over a landscape gently reshaped by centuries of careful burning and regrowth. The effects of Viking fire use on the environment didn't blaze wildly, but worked slowly, quietly transforming forests and fields into a patchwork of habitats adapted for both people and wildlife. Imagine walking along trails bordered by younger stands of birch and pin the results of bands of forest that had rested and regrown after earlier burns. Some areas show tender green shoots flourishing on ash-rich soil, while others reveal the slow encroachment of moss and shrubs reclaiming space once cleared. Fire wasn't a one-time event, but a repeated cyclical process, allowing the land to recover between burns. This created a dynamic mosaic, known to ecologists as a fire-managed landscape, a balance of open fields, regrowing forest, and transitional zones that supported crops, grazing animals, and wild game. The gradual transformation helped Viking farmers create environments where both human needs and nature's rhythms could coexist. They harvested timber and forage, tended livestock, and gathered wild plants in these varied zones, a gentle form of land stewardship, born out of necessity rather than conservation ideals. Historians still argue about the scale and impact of these burns. Were Viking fires frequent enough to prevent reforestation entirely, or did the land lean back toward forest between agricultural cycles? Soil and pollen data suggest it was a delicate blend fire, kept many areas open, but actual denudation was limited. You might find it curious that some of today's Scandinavian open woodlands, rich in wildflowers and traditional pastureland species, can trace their origins back to these ancient burning patterns. In a way, the landscape tells a slow, smoky story, whispering of human interaction with fire that shaped its gentle contours over centuries. So, as you drift amid these quiet forests and fields, painted by flame and regrowth, imagine the soft pulse of fire shaping nature's dancer, slow, soothing alteration, neither destructive nor permanent, but a tender collaboration between humans and the land. You feel the cool northern breeze tug gently at your cloak as you consider the delicate dance Viking farmers performed with fire their friend, but also a potential mischief maker. Fire, though immensely useful, carried risks that demanded constant vigilance and respect. Managing flame without modern tools or firefighting equipment meant walking a careful line between utility and disaster. Picture the sharp crack of an ember landing on a dry patch as night falls, the flickering orange suddenly threatening to leap beyond control. Accidental fires could spread rapidly through dense forests, turning helpful burn into uncontrolled conflagration. The Vikings couldn't afford such mistakes. A wildfire could devastate entire crops and settlements, pushing people back into harsh wilderness. Because of this, fire management was likely a communal effort. Historians still debate the full range of fire prevention techniques used, but it's reasonable to think early warning systems, perhaps watchmen stationed near burn sites, helped keep fires in check. Additionally, burns were probably started in carefully chosen weather conditions, when humidity and wind were favourable. One interesting tidbit is that some sagas hint at fire wards or rituals performed to protect lands from unwanted fire, blending practical caution with spiritual safeguards. This mix of hands-on prevention and ritual respect hints at a cultural understanding that fire was a powerful but unpredictable force, requiring both skill and reverence. Viking farmers also likely employed fire breaks-cleared strips of land, or paths, designed to stop or slow the spread of flame. You can almost hear the rhythmic chopping of axes making these safety buffers, a silent promise between neighbours to keep each other's fields safe. Despite all precautions, The risk of runaway fires lingered, a constant quiet tension in rural life that shaped some traditions and decisions. It also meant that the flame, while friendly, was never fully tamed, always a living element demanding respect, attention, and patience. So, as you settle tonight, feel the flicker of this ancient caution glowing softly through history, a reminder that even the gentlest flames can surprise us, warming and warning us in equal measure. You lean closer to the flickering glow of the hearth, where, beyond cooking and light, fire holds a quieter, gentler roly source of soothing warmth and healing touch. Viking farmers didn't just use flames to farm and cook. They also adopted fire for remedies and medicine in ways both familiar and surprising. Picture a simmering pot of herbal concoctions, bubbling gently over embers, releasing earthy, calming aromas. Certain plants, carefully harvested and steeped by fire, were thought to ease aches, soothe wounds, or aid restful sleep, important in a world without modern pharmacies. The heat allowed for extraction of medicinal compounds in teas, poultices, and salves. One curious practice involved the use of warmed embers wrapped in cloth as a gentle compress for sore muscles or joints, basically a Viking's version of a hot pack. This slow, steady warmth helped relax stiff limbs after a hard day chopping wood or tending fields. Not quite a spa day, but a welcome relief nonetheless. Historians still argue the extent to which these fire-based remedies were widespread or varied greatly between regions and families. Some evidence suggests that certain herbal mixtures were passed down in intimate family knowledge, blending botanical savvy with practical fireside rituals. A quirky regional tidbit. In some northern communities, the smoky air itself was considered purifying, with people briefly entering smoke-filled huts or tents to cleanse themselves, or their belongings a ritual bordering on medicinal and spiritual usage. While it's unlikely that flames cured every ailment, their role in Viking medicine was part practical, part traditioner, warm touch, where cooler remedies were unavailable. As you settle by the hearth's gentle glow, imagine these ancient healing fire squiet, nurturing embers, radiating comfort and Korean, intimate dance of flame and folk remedy that helped Viking bodies and spirits carry on through cold, dark nights. You trudge across frozen ground, the distant crackle of fire echoing softly as you consider how flames silently shaped Viking journeys into new lands. Fire wasn't just a tool of settlement, it was a subtle agent influencing how and where the Vikings expanded, carving open new frontiers in both agriculture and habitation. Imagine arriving in an untouched but heavily wooded territory, wild and challenging. The first order of business, after scouting and staking claim, controlled burns to clear land for crops and pastures. Fires cleared tangled thickets, revealing soil rich with ash, ready to nourish the first seedlings of new settlements. Fire was a quietly aggressive partner in colonization, paving paths for farms that would feed growing communities. But fire's role wasn't purely benevolent. Reckless or excessive burning could disrupt local ecosystems or alienate neighbouring groups who depended on forest resources. Historians still argue whether fire use facilitated smooth settlement across lands like Iceland or Greenland, or whether it caused tensions with indigenous populations through landscape alteration. Interestingly, some Viking-era archaeological sites show evidence of both slash and burn fields and undisturbed patches, suggesting a selective approach to using fire rather than wholesale deforestation. This measured use allowed a mosaic of habitats to endure even amidst human expansion. From a sensory angle, remember the smell of warm ash mingling with pine resin and damp earth, a signature scent carried on northern winds as Vikings found and tamed new homes. Each smoke wisp told stories of settlement, survival, and a deep, if gentle, human influence on the wilderness. So, As you imagine the slow-burning fires dotting new frontiers, think of fire as both pioneer and protectora, quiet flame guiding Viking expansion with a steady amber glow. You sit quietly beneath a canopy of stars, the soft glow of distant flames flickering just beyond the tree line. Fire, the ancient ally of Viking farmers, still holds a warm, mysterious place in history, its full story gently smouldering beneath layers of time. As we reflect on this luminous thread woven through Viking life, we realise much remains a quietly burning question. Historians still debate the precise techniques Vikings used to control burn show. They balanced fire's generous gifts with its potential for havoc. Did every farmer follow a shared playbook, or did methods vary wildly by region, family and season? Were fire rituals purely practical, or did deeper spiritual meanings guide their flickering flames? These open questions invite us to listen closely to the whispers of ashes and embers. It's fascinating to consider how much modern sustainable land practices echo these ancient approaches: rotating fields, controlled burns, and respectful fire stewardship. The Vikings, in their slow but persistent way, mastered a form of environmental balance that modern science is only now closely examining. Their partnership with fire wasn't reckless domination, but a quiet collaboration, blending survival instincts with careful observation. As you softly inhale the scent of imaginary smoke drifting across time, picture yourself among those quiet Nordic fields, a gentle fire shimmering in the distance, an ancient steady pulse connecting past and present. That warm glow is not only a functional tool, but a metaphor for human adaptation, humility, and the slow, soothing shaping of land and life. So tonight, let fire's amber light ease your thoughts, guiding you into dreams where history's gentle flames flicker softly, lighting the path to rest. Thank you for travelling this smoky trail with me. Until next time, I hope your nights are warm and your dreams are bright.